All right, so today we're going to do reading, written expression, and math lesson plans. And first up is reading. So 3 facts about struggling readers. 1 in 5 students is likely to have trouble learning to read. Adults who read below a 5th grade level are generally limited to low-income jobs with frequent layoffs, and 80% of special education students have deficits in reading. Characteristics of future trouble, these could be including late talking or delayed speech by age 2, the inability for the child to rhyme, or the difficulty understanding the child when they're speaking. So what's the Balanced Literacy Program? This is a reading program for children that includes techniques to develop areas of vocabulary and language, phonics decoding, writing, phonemic awareness, and reading. There are also ongoing tools in the program to ensure skills are being acquired and diagnostic tools if not. So phonemic awareness is the understanding that spoken words and syllables are made up of sequences of speech sounds and that it is possible to isolate these sounds in order to assist in spelling and writing. So steps to teaching reading, again, you need to convince the child that you can teach them. Discuss and note what kinds of rewards the child prefers. Determine what the child does and doesn't know. Determine level of word recognition. Using nonsense word, determine whether the child can blend sounds into words they've never seen before. Listen to the child read at their independent reading level. Analyze the data and make a plan to help the child learn. So what are word walls? I know you can't see this very well, but what it is it's a visual index and motivator in which you add words taught in spelling and decoding. It's a continuous process in which you take one word and then you place more words below this word that are related underneath the corresponding letter. And this is a good tool to remind students of words they already know to reinforce previous lessons. So word families and clumps. This is a concept that when we spell, not every word is a new word. So look inside the word for clumps of words. So we already know the word at, but we can find the word at inside of the word bat. And using hanging rhyming word charts can be really helpful teaching this. So for the emerging reader, students must practice at least 30 minutes a day. This can be chunked, followed by questions about what they read. Second, you can introduce the silent E. You can explain what it does and use the pronunciation key to help. Ask students to say the vowels and add W. And prior to decoding a word, have students mark vowels in the word and then introduce patterns, especially once you reach CVCV patterns. Third, teach the sounds sh, th, ch, w, and f as they appear. Teach how they go together and what sound they make. Next, help them encounter special combinations as they come up. And fifthly, make copies of the decoding reminder and distribute them for student reference. So with the reading lesson plan, basically what I was going to have students do was be able to visualize a picture from a one-sentence caption. And it'll be kind of like a comic strip, so they'd read it and then they would draw a picture of what they saw. And then I would model for them how this works. And it would just teach them how to visualize properly. So next up is written expression. So 3 facts. Problems producing speech correlate closely with difficulties in spelling and writing. Writing, spelling, and speaking are often discussed interchangeably in education, but they're actually part of 3 distinct aspects of learning. And spelling and expressing ideas in print are often part of 2 different processes in the brain. How to assist with spelling. Have students make their own word dictionaries as a reference and introduce new words each week for them to add. Introduce spelling activities after memorizing 15 letters, and you can use a digital reader to help students. So the first step of teaching spelling is having students repeat the word and sound it out, and then having you model how to spell it and say it. Use repetition by having them write it, then spell it with eyes and ears closed to close out distractions. Go through the word again a second day and add new words continually. And then on the 3rd day, repeat the words we already know and have the students test themselves on the 4th day, circling incorrect words for further study. Then you continue introducing new words and vowels until the students can add them together to form short sentences. And then after learning enough words, students can write these sentences by themselves. Um, and then while asking how to spell words phonetically, students with learning examples need different examples, such as the E is going to slam dunk the vowel in front of it into saying its own letter sound. So for handwriting, begin by assessing if the child's reading level is appropriate and assess their printing level. If they've mastered printing, go ahead, teach them cursive. This might be easier by using patterned sheets to trace. If the child is still having trouble past 4th grade, it's time to teach coping skills like typing and then practice how to take notes and organize them on the computer. And when learning cursive, have the child practice each letter individually for several days before teaching them how to write the letters together to form small words. And then start by connecting tall words or tall letters to shorter letters to form words. And for older students, to succeed in writing, they need to know the following: spacing, proofreading, sentence analysis, grammar, and writing paragraphs and indenting. And this also includes organizing information and thoughts in the paragraph and spell checking it. And these can be taught through continual guided and independent practice. So for the writing lesson plan, what I was going to have them do was kind of write a letter, because that would be really helpful, and I was going to kind of have them do like a pen pal type deal, where I'd pair them with a student in our class or a student in another class, and that way we could have inter-class relationships being built up. And I want them to be able to correctly date, open, write the letter, and sign it. And then if possible, I was going to have them fill out an envelope correctly. And this would obviously be done through heavy visual aid and modeling. And then students with special needs, I could go ahead and differentiate this by labeling different parts, maybe breaking down a little bit more the lesson to not have them have to write as much. And finally, we're going to go with mathematics. So what is a lack of readiness? This is not having the same experiences as other students, including knowing like shapes and figures, a couple of mathematical symbols such as numbers, and counting. And students with a lack of readiness need more help with these basic things before they can sit down to do equations, because not everyone's parents teach them how to count to 10 before they get to kindergarten. So what are visual perceptual deficits? These are difficulties with writing numbers, understanding sets and groups, and counting without tactile objects, lining up columns of numbers, spatial sense, memory, and math anxiety. And poor spatial sense is a difficulty understanding things like over and under and more or less, and it has to do with quantities. And poor memory is like a lack of memorization, so you see these students needing to use their fingers or slash marks to keep track of quantities. And these might be your kids that need assistive technology. And the assessment portion, these tests go ahead and test a variety of skills to see which ones are lacking. And it also helps teachers see how the student solves the problems to better understand how to individualize their instruction. So what are these different levels of thoughts that we're looking at here? With concrete thought, this is where students use physical objects and manipulate them to help memorize information, such as fractions. And then from there we move on to representational, and this is where it's pictorial, so we take away the physical thing to manipulate, and students can look at the symbols and pictures and understand how to move things mentally to get the answers. And with an abstract, this follows representational. The student understands the concepts well enough to be able to manipulate them in their head, and they can understand and work with higher level ideas such as relationships, like equivalent fractions and whole numbers and fractions. And finally, we're going to get to that math lesson plan, which is down here. And what I wanted students to be able to do here was counting coins, specifically the penny and the nickel. And what I want them to know here is what's the value, what does it look like, how do you add it together. I'm just focusing on adding because subtraction is a pain in the butt. And I don't really expect them to have any prior knowledge. I don't know why, but I somehow placed all of my students as kindergartners here. So we're focusing on basic stuff. It would use some technology like a projector if we have a student who has a special need and an accommodation. They can have the lesson on like a PowerPoint. They can use a computer to do this. And I was going to have them work with a worksheet that has them just adding them together. They could be visuals or slash marks, and I was just going to work with students on how to picture what each one is worth, whether that's adding dots together or whether that's adding slash marks. And then I was going to just slowly introduce dimes and then quarters and then 50-cent pieces and dollar pieces, even though they probably won't see those last two in today's society. So that's about it. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it.